Well, hello again, Covenant, and whoever else is joining us for this study. We are in chapter 5 of Irresistible by Andy Stanley. And so I'm going to walk through chapter 5 and just talk about that a little bit. And if you have any comments or questions, please write them down. I really enjoyed this chapter. Hope you did as well. You can tell that Andy really loves his history and loves using history to bring Jesus's teaching to light and bring some clarity to it and paint a picture that helps us understand the context and everything that's going on at that time. He does a great job of this, and it makes me as a pastor want to get better at that as well. I've never been like a huge history buff. But when I read the way Andy connects what Jesus teaches with history to bring it all to light and help us understand what's happening, it makes me want to learn that even more. So you may be hearing a little more about that in sermons in the near future. Anyway, chapter 5. Andy's point here is that Jesus came to bring something brand new that threatened the way of life for Jewish leaders at the time: rabbis, Pharisees, Sadducees, temple people, temple workers, probably some priests. And so the reason these Jewish leaders were worried is because they had it made. They had power, they had authority, they had money, they had influence. They were making a ton of money off the temple. He walks through that in not great detail, but in some detail, enough for us to understand what's happening. And these religious leaders justified their place and their position and their power and their wealth by twisting and bending Old Testament laws to fit what they wanted in their way of life. And of course, if Jesus was right, if Jesus was who he claimed to be, and if Jesus' purpose for coming was what he communicated his purpose was for coming, it made sense that the Jewish leaders and the Jewish elite hated him. And make no mistake, they did hate him. We see it over and over again in the Gospels. And Andy's right on when he says that one of the main themes is Jesus versus religious leaders in the Gospels. You see it all over the place. So Jesus came to tear down their current system so that something new could arise. And the Jewish leaders liked the current system. It made them rich and powerful. And so they were threatened and they hated Jesus. Then Andy uses the most central visual representation of Jewish religion to talk about this idea of tearing something down for something new to come. And that central visual representation of Jewish life and the Jewish way and Jewish religion was the temple. It could be seen from miles away on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And Andy does a great job of showing this truth that at the time of Jesus, the temple was like the central figure. It was everything, right? Represented their Jewish way of life. They couldn't imagine their faith without the temple. So much so, right? He shares this historical account, which was really cool, of a peaceful protest, right? That's, I think, appropriate for our culture today. This peaceful protest where the Roman leaders wanted the statue of Gaius Caligula. That's a cool name, isn't it? Gaius Caligula. But they wanted his statue within the temple walls. And they're bringing the statue to Jerusalem. And along the way, there's these Jewish protesters, peaceful protesters, who are unarmed, raising their neck, saying, "We would rather die than allow the statue to be in our temple." Remember that one of the things that made the Jewish temple separate and different, unique from every other pagan temple at the time, was there were no statues. There were no things that were worshipped, images or statues that were worshipped. It was about worshiping God, who the temple pointed to. And so Andy does a good idea of walking through that idea, and it helps you understand a little bit more as well. The way that the Jews thought of the temple helps you understand how they were threatened by what Jesus said. Andy also shares extensively about how the temple made the Jewish leaders rich, right? And there's three ways that happens, and Andy Stanley walks through those three ways that these religious leaders, the priests and rabbis and Sadducees, were making money, a lot of money, through extortion, through taxes, and then exchange, money exchanging, and then through selling sacrifices. Those are the three ways. It helps you understand why Jesus says, "You've made my Father's house a den of thieves," right? It brings that to life, that teaching as well. Andy talks about this prediction that Jesus makes about the temple in Luke 21? It's verses 20 through 24, and walks through how all the predictions come true, which is pretty cool. This really points to Jesus fulfilling one of those main roles that we talked about. Well, we talked about it on Sunday morning. Prophet, priest, and king. These three leadership roles in the Old Testament. Jesus fulfills all three of them. And this is a great example, Luke 21, 20 through 24, of Jesus fulfilling this role of prophet by sharing what's going to happen. And then in 70 AD, right, Vespasian, his Roman army, comes and they conquer Jerusalem and destroy the temple. It literally happens. And Andy talks about how this is the end of one era, the end of one way, the end of one system, the end of temple life and the temple era, so that something new could arise. It paved the way for what I would say is a new covenant that Andy's going to be talking about. Andy writes, something greater than the temple had to come, is the way he puts it. So this chapter sets up the next section of the book called All Things New, and we will start that next week. So thanks for joining me once again. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And if you're watching this through YouTube, please subscribe to the Covenant page. That helps us out. All right. Thank y'all. Have a great rest of the week. Bye.